It was sort of funny. At the time, we kept saying back and forth, are you sure you want to do this? Once we use the M word, everyone's going to freak out. It's going to get big. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? But we actually both did.
This is Bridget Weirdy, a graduate student in the English department at Stanford. And of course, the M word she's talking about is marriage.
At the beginning, she was saying things like, marriage is a patriarchal, heteronormative institution designed to monopolize women's social and economic and sexual worth, and I'm not interested in that. And she was so convincing that she convinced me.
Bridget and her partner Nikki were content with the life they shared together. They had met 7 years ago while in college at the University of Montana. They met at a coffee shop in Missoula, in their home state.
It was one of those very stereotypical undergrad sort of college meeting someone things. I sort of went up and started flirting shamelessly with her, but we got in a conversation about old movies of Katharine Hepburn, then just started spending time together and fell in love very quickly and have been together ever since.
After 3.5 years of being together, Bridget and Nikki consider themselves already married.
Living together, pets together, paying the bills together, being with each other and only each other.
They were content with their lives. They didn't need anyone else to tell them who they were or what their relationship was about.
We saw the pictures of the first couple to get married in 2004, I think, by Gavin Newsom. And I looked at that and thought, that's going to be us. Someday it will be legal, but we will be that sort of cute little old lady couple that people will look at and say, they've been together 50 years and now they can do this. I mean, I believed it would happen, but I never believed I would be this young.
But for Bridget and Nikki, things changed in May of 2008 when the California Supreme Court began its deliberations on same-sex marriage. The day of the ruling, Bridget remained skeptical. Only 4 years earlier, Bridget had been a vocal activist against SI 96, which proposed a Montana constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. After all her hard work against that measure, it had passed, and this time, she thought, wouldn't be any different.
So when I heard the California Supreme Court was going to rule on this, I was intensely cynical. I thought, okay, so we'll do this. They'll say no. And one of my colleagues was like, have you heard about the decision? And I told her, I don't want to hear about it. You know, I know that people are not going to sort of stand up for equality, and it just makes me sad. And she was like, no, it went the other way. And I checked my cell phone, and there was a call from Nikki, and the message was just, so I know you say you're kind of opposed to the whole marriage thing, but I just heard the news, and I was wondering if you wanted to reconsider that. And I called her back and left her a message saying, if that's a marriage proposal, you're going to have to do better.
The Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriage, and suddenly, for the first time in their lives, Bridget and Nikki's relationship could have the same legal standing as everyone else's. So they put all the old reservations and doubts aside and decided to go for it. They were going to get married, use the M word, but at the time they had no idea how their very personal decision would turn into a huge discussion for an entire state.
I got this very odd phone call from my mother saying, my mother in Montana, saying, I don't want you to think that this is a prank call if a reporter calls you and wants to talk with you about you and Nikki. This man named Martin Kidston ran into, in passing, the director of the Montana Human Rights Network. He ran into her and said, so how about this California thing? And they were chatting about it. And he asked her in passing, do you know any couples who are going from Montana to California to get married? And her partner is in the same book group as my mother.
So one thing led to another, and Martin Kidston called Bridget's mother. Bridget's mother called Bridget, and suddenly, Bridget and Nikki, in the midst of planning their wedding, had to decide if they wanted the state of Montana reading about their personal life.
And it was funny. Nikki and I thought about it, and we talked about it. She said she didn't want her name in the paper until she could get permission from her family, because she comes from a very small town in eastern Montana. Her grandmother actually doesn't know that she's a lesbian. She doesn't know that her spinsterish best friend she's been hanging out with for 7 years is in fact her partner. So this was anxiety-inducing, that her name would be more public than it has ever been before.
But Nikki's parents did give them permission, so Bridget and Nikki agreed, and even sent Martin photos.
And then we'd sent one of us hugging by the Golden Gate Bridge because we thought, Montana couple in San Francisco getting married, they need this. This is iconic.
They wanted their story to be told, and they didn't think it would be a big deal.
We thought, page 6 of the C section, the kind of Montana life, slow news day kind of thing. And so the morning of the 19th dawns, and we'd been up decorating the night before, and the phone rings, and it's one of our very good friends from Montana screaming, "Oh my God, you're getting married and you're on the front page." So we were not on page 6 of the Montana Human Interest section. We were front page above the fold, big color photos. So the first one was called Lifelong Commitment, and had this fantastic quote from Nikki in it about how marriage is not just a commitment to each other, it's a commitment to community and family. And she's very eloquent.
This was on the morning of their wedding. Their wedding was a simple, intimate gathering of friends and family, many having traveled from Montana.
We got married in a friend's backyard in Redwood City, and we had the reception at our house. And our neighbors moved their cars out of the parking places, and we washed off the driveway and turned it into this sort of lovely patio space with lots of flowers and lights and candles and tables everywhere, and my great-grandmother's tablecloths and that kind of thing. After sort of holding out against patriarchal, heteronormative, blah, 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 I was very touched by the ceremony. I was the one who cried. It was wonderful.
Bridget and Nikki felt good about their front page exposure and had no idea what their marriage was about to cause thousands of miles away.